Hello, welcome or welcome back. I am so glad that you clicked on today's video. Today is going to be a really fun one. It's one that I've been anticipating for a little bit now, but I haven't brought myself around to actually making the video. I'm going to be taking you guys through the 10 books that I want to finish before the end of the year. So my 10 before the end. I love doing this. I love challenging myself, especially towards the end of the year, because I have a reading goal that I set for myself, and if we're being honest with ourselves, I am nowhere near that goal. Making this list of books was a little bit challenging for me prior to a few days ago, just because I wasn't quite sure where I sat with reading recently. I feel like I've been reading too many books that felt a little too similar, and it's been putting me off of not just the fantasy genre but also the romance genre as well. So I didn't know which books I would realistically find myself reading towards this later half in the year. Who's to say that I'm not going to change my mind on that a month from now? So this pile does have a little bit of an assortment of genres, but there is a little bit of a heavier lean towards a specific type of book, just because that's kind of what's drawing me in at the moment. So without further ado, let us start going through the 10 books that I would like to read before the end of the year. This first book should come as a surprise to absolutely nobody. I have been talking about this book since before it came out, Alchemized by Sen-Lin Yu. I am so excited to read this book, but I'll be honest, I haven't found the perfect time to dive into it because I know that it is a much heavier book than I was kind of willing to read most recently, but I think right now I'm in the right frame of mind, I guess you could say, to read some heavier books, and I don't want to skip out on this one. This one has been one of my most anticipated releases for a very, very long time, and I can't wait to read it. It is a very chunky book. I think it's over 1,000 pages if I'm not mistaken. Yes, this book is just over 1,000 pages, so it is very chunky. I know that this is going to be a little bit of a challenging read, but I'm so excited for it. I'm so ready for all the emotions, all the feels that I'm gonna get when... That was my cat. I'm so ready for all the feels that I'm going to get when reading this book. I've heard so much discourse surrounding this book and the subject material that it was sourced from, so I honestly don't want to give too much breath to acknowledging this book because I know that it's going to get hate regardless, and I know that there are probably going to be people out there that dislike me already just because this is the first book that I brought up. So I'm so sorry if that is the case. I personally loved the original fan fiction that this book was based off of, and I absolutely did purchase this book because of that, so I wouldn't take it back. I loved the original, and I really hope that I will love this one just as much, and I guess that's all I'm going to say about that one. The next book is definitely not as controversial as the first book was, and that is Immortal Consequences. I just recently finished a dark academia book, and I feel like I really want to stay in those vibes. I have not seen or heard a whole lot about this book other than reading the blurb myself, and from that alone, it just sounds really interesting, very intriguing, very dark and academic, which is precisely the type of vibes that I would like to stay immersed in for a little bit longer. Honestly, I'm very excited about this one. I put this on my fall TBR, and considering we are still technically in fall for about another month or so, I would like to read this sooner rather than later, so I guess we'll have to see whether that actually happens. There really aren't many other reasons why I decided to put this on my end of year TBR. I have a ton of special edition books from Fairy Loot and Illumicrate that I need to start reading. It's the reason why I actually canceled my subscription recently, because I just haven't been reading the books. They've been very mediocre. There are a couple that I really enjoyed and I loved wholeheartedly, but it seems like there is a trend for mediocrity in the special edition book box books, and it has really turned me off from reading them. So they just started piling, and now it's almost overwhelming how many unread special editions I have. I'd really like to start bringing that number down, and I figured it's as good a time as any to start now before the end of the year hits to at least try and bring that number down a little bit because it is quite overwhelming at this point. So again, not really any particular reason why I chose this one other than it has the dark academia vibes and it seems really interesting. I've heard a lot about it and it's a special edition book that I would like to get off of my physical TBR. So those three reasons combined, it's good enough for me. So this is on my end of TBR as well. Now, staying with that dark academia theme, I recently started The Secret History. I guess I should say I restarted it recently because I first started this book back in September when I first got it. And it just wasn't the perfect time for me to fully immerse myself in this book. I didn't realize how much I would want to dissect this book and annotate it when I first started reading it. And because of that, and with me just starting YouTube around that same time, it just got a little bit overwhelming. So I decided to put the book down for the time being, and I recently picked it back up, and I am just over 100 pages into this book, and I am loving it. It is so interesting. I think the concept of it being a mystery, but also not a total mystery, is really cool because you're told right off the bat that somebody dies and you're told kind of how it happened but not really, and then the rest of the book you're just kind of piecing together the before to try and figure out what happened and why it happened. The most recent book that I finished was very thought-provoking and I didn't realize how much I missed that in reading. I think that's one of the reasons why I've been so put off against romance and fantasy because they haven't been hitting the same recently, and I think being able to dive into a book like this where I'm literally annotating or underlining something on every single page, it's so nice because I can take my time with the book and really try and digest what I'm reading. And I think that's one of the things I've missed most, actually taking my time to absorb the material and think about what I'm reading as opposed to just getting through the book for the sake of getting through it. That sounds like the most obvious thing in the entire world, but it really has been an issue lately with me just trying to read the books just to get through it. I'm rambling on at this point, but yeah, this book is definitely high up there. I obviously have already started reading it, so I most likely will be finishing this one first off of the entire TBR, but nonetheless, I'm still very excited to see what comes of this book and see how it ends because there's some crazy twists happening already and it's really interesting to see the dynamic between everybody. And this is not a review video, so we're not going to get too far into it, but again, very excited to read and finish this one. And then kind of staying along the lines of older books or more classic books, I also would really like to finish Pride and Prejudice. I just recently watched Pride and Prejudice, the movie, for the first time in my entire life. And I loved it. I thought it was a really cute romance movie. And I figured that if I wanted to read a more challenging book that really made me think a little bit deeper and made me read a little bit slower, but was also kind of dipping my toes back into the romance genre as well, I figured this would be a really good place to start, especially since I just watched the movie. And I'll be honest, the older language in this book is a little bit tough. I am not an English major, I am a science major, so this is not the easiest thing to read, but I still find it very interesting and very fun to read. I love sometimes just sitting back with a classic book that I can hardly comprehend and trying my best to comprehend it. Maybe that makes me a little weird, but I find that so fun sometimes and so freeing because I'm not reading for show. I'm not reading to just fly through the book. I'm forced to read slower and look up the meaning of words that I don't know or try and understand what the sentence is really trying to convey behind the older language. So I really love that. I'm very excited to actually get through this one because I hear so many people talking about it. This is like classic peak romance that everybody always talks about. I feel like I need in on it. So yeah, and then going hand in hand with that is Wuthering Heights. I have been talking about this book so much. I have told myself that I would read this book and finish it many times now. It's been on many TBRs and it never actually got read. I've made it probably no more than 50 pages into this book before putting it down, and that's just unacceptable. I need to read this book. I need to know this story. I need to know what happens. I need to know the people in it. I'm in such a good reading mood for classics or something that's a little bit more challenging intellectually, I guess. This would be the perfect time for me to read this book because there is almost never a time when I want to be intellectually challenged when reading, and yet I find myself in that moment right now. So I think this will be the best time possible for me to actually pick up this book and actually finish it with the highest chance of success, I guess. That is where I find myself right now, and that is why this would be the perfect time for me to pick this book up as well. Getting some of the classics out of the way because I have an entire shelf of classics over here, and the majority of them have not been touched. This is me trying to get that number down by reading some of the classics. Next on our list, we have another chunker, Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. This is another book that I've been telling myself I'm going to read for a very long time, but this time I feel like I can actually do it. I feel like my season for Sarah J. Maas is right around Thanksgiving to Christmas time. That's when I finished the entire Throne of Glass series, and I don't know, I feel like this is just that time of year to pick up a SJM book, so I figured give myself the highest chance of success again in this scenario. Try and finish this book now as well because I know that the draft for ACOTAR 6 has been officially announced and I need to read and finish the entire Crescent City series before I actually move on to the 6th book of ACOTAR. And these books are thick. They are going to take a long time to read, so I figured I might as well start the first one now so then I could possibly finish the second one sometime next year. That's a goal of mine. That's probably a hefty, steep goal considering how big this book is, but I guess we'll see. Now, I didn't want to be too harsh on myself. I'm kind of balancing the bigger books out a little bit here with the Percy Jackson books. I have admittedly only read the first 2 books in this entire series, so I figured I might as well throw the 3rd book on here just to make it a little bit more easy on myself. The Percy Jackson books are such a fun, quick, easy read, so if I find myself needing a little bit of a breather in between some of the heavier books, then I feel like this would be a perfect in between. And I would like to have read the whole Percy Jackson series. It's just, I feel like that is a staple in literature for, I don't know, it's like The Hunger Games, or what are some other like novels that people always talk about? It's like The Hunger Games or Twilight or The Hobbit. Like, I feel like these are staples in literature. Like, you have to read these series in order to be a reader. I know that's obviously not the case at all, but I don't know. I own the series. It's easy and fun to read, so I might as well try to at least finish the books. So that's why this book is on here. Next we have If It Makes You Happy by Julie Olivia. I have heard so much about this book, especially recently. This book just came out this year and I have already heard so many good things about it, and it's still the fall time. I feel like this would be a perfect read for just around Thanksgiving when I want something a little bit cozier and more lighthearted, and I find myself just sitting at home around the holidays. I feel like this will be a perfect read for that, so I'm actually really excited to pick this one up. I can't wait to see what it's about. I know that it has a lot of Gilmore Girls vibes in it. Everybody's talking about how cozy it is. I love a cozy book. I love Gilmore Girls. There's honestly not that much more that needs to be said about that. I want to read this around Thanksgiving, and that's my plan. So that is that for that book. And then we have a couple more books that I had to write down because I don't actually have the physical books. I don't own them, but there are 2 books that I actually have to read before the end of the year. Like, I think there is a very slim chance that I will not pick these books up before the end of the year because these are books by some of my favorite authors ever that were just recently released, and I'm very excited about it. The first book is Merry Christmas, You Filthy Animal. Obviously, you'll see a picture of the book somewhere on this screen, so you'll get the right title if that's not it. But Merry Christmas, You Filthy Animal by Megan Quinn. Last year I read How My Neighbor Stole Christmas by Megan Quinn, and I loved it so much. It was the perfect book to read just before Christmas hit. It was so Christmassy, so atmospheric, and it was just a very funny, lighthearted Christmas book, but it was very vulgar in the way that only Megan Quinn can make a book feel. And I don't know, I really loved that book. I had such a good time reading it, and I saw that this was another book that was coming out in, I'm not sure if it's a series or not, but I think it might be. But as soon as I saw that she was releasing another Christmas book just like that one, hands down, I knew that I had to read it. I might not be buying the book because I don't own a copy of How My Neighbor Stole Christmas either, but regardless, I loved the first book, so I absolutely will be picking up the second one sometime around Christmas, most likely right before Christmas hits. It puts you in such a good holiday mood, and there really is nothing like it. It's unmatched, honestly. I love Megan Quinn's writing. She's very witty, very funny. She's very inappropriate with the language that she uses and the humor that she uses. Very crude, but I love it so much. She's just such a fun author to read. She'll kind of break that third wall and talk directly to the reader in the book. So it's coming from like a narrator's perspective, talking to the audience, and she makes jokes about the storyline and the relationship that's developing. I found it to be so funny, and it just never took itself too seriously, and I loved that about her books. So absolutely 100% I will be reading the newest installment in that series, if that's what it is, Merry Christmas, You Filthy Animal. That is hands down going to be read this year. If not, I don't know, someone strike me down, because I promise you I will be finishing that book. And then last but absolutely not least on this list is Breathe With Me by Becca Mack. I don't know if I've ever mentioned it before on any one of my social medias, but I am the biggest Becca Mack fan. I love her writing. Becca Mack is the author that wrote the Playing for Keeps series, which I actually have. This is the Playing for Keeps series by Becca Mack. When I tell you that this is a 5-star series for me, it is without a doubt, hands down, the best romance series that I've ever read in my entire life. I don't think I have ever connected to a group of characters as much as I have in these books. Every single couple in these books has left me with the feeling of wanting more. Like, I love these couples. I could never get enough of them, but the books are so perfectly written in a way where every single one of these characters is like a family and everyone is connected, so you're never like left on this cliffhanger of what's happening in these other characters' lives, because if one character gets a happy ending in the first book, you're going to continue seeing pieces of them throughout the rest of the series, and it's not like you just never see the couple ever again. You have those interactions still with every single one of the characters. It's such a beautiful found family, and genuinely one of the best found family stories I've ever read, and that's reading all 4 books. Every single book in this series so far that I've read is 5 stars, with the exception of one book, but we're not going to be pointing that one out. But this series definitely holds such a special place in my heart. I'm so happy that we're getting another book, but I'm also really sad because it is the last one in the series, and the couple that we're focusing on in this newer book, we've known about, we've seen their relationship growing throughout every single one of these books, and there's a particular problem that they're struggling with, and I think watching that unfold for them is going to be deeply heartbreaking, let alone the fact that the entire series altogether is just coming to a close. I feel like I'm very nervous to see how it's going to come to an end and how everything's going to wrap up, but I'm also very, very happy to get another book by her, because these are the only books that Becca Mack has written thus far, and I am astonished at how beautiful they are, how wonderfully written they are. They are so engaging, so interesting, such a lovely, lighthearted romance. Like, I genuinely can't speak a single negative thing about this author, about these books. I am in love with them, and they will always and forever hold a very special place in my heart. So with that being said, I am very, very excited to read the final book in the series. Definitely saddened, but very excited to see how this author closes everyone's stories, and I think it's going to be beautiful. I think I'm going to be sobbing, but I'm very ready for it. I'm so excited. I've been waiting for their story since finishing the last book, and I'm so excited for it. So with that being said, these along with 2 other books that I don't currently have, I don't own them, so maybe I'll put them up on the screen. These are the 10 books that I would like to finish before the year ends. I feel like this can go without being said, but I'm gonna say it anyways. Just because these are the 10 books that are on my 10 before the end does not mean that these are the only books that I'm going to be reading from now until the end of the year. And it also does not mean that I'm going to be reading every single one of these books before the year ends. I know very realistically, I'm probably not going to read all of these books before the year ends. Hi, can I help you? Do you want to say hi? I think Choji wanted to be here for the outro, so let me put these books down real quick. Just because those are my 10 before the end books does not mean that I'm restricting myself to only reading those books, and it also does not mean that I'm guaranteed to finish all of those books before the end of the year. It's highly unlikely that I'll actually finish every single one of them. There are some really thick and heavy books in that TBR, so it's kind of an unrealistic expectation to finish them all, but it's still a nice challenge for me to set for myself. I still like to have high hopes for myself and for my end of year. It'll be fun for me to see if I actually do finish all these books. I think it'd be great if I did. That'd be super exciting. Here's to hoping for a really great and strong end of year with our reading. And yeah, so I guess that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next video. Choji is worth not being able to do my signature outro, so I guess we're just gonna have to end this video the normal way. So I guess I'll see you next time. Bye.